Hello everyone, welcome back to Reddit now. I'm your host Peter, and today's subreddit is r/AskReddit. Hey Reddit, when did your "something's not right here" gut feeling ever save you? In 2004, on Boxing Day. Not me, but my mother. Family trip including all cousins and extended family on my dad's side to visit the coastal south of Sri Lanka on vacation. About 20 people in all. Well planned trip. Last moment, my mother didn't want to go. No reason at all. None of us could get her to explain why, but she refused to go. So we went inland on a different trip to see some other relatives. Around midday, the entire extended family, now on both sides, was sitting shocked in front of the television, watching the very same hotel we booked being washed away live by the tsunami. To date, she still can't explain what she felt. I just refer to that as the "don't ducking do it" feeling, and I felt it a lot in my life. Most notably was the time my mother wanted to go for a bike ride with me when I was little. Usual path, nothing strange. Well, there's this park we went to normally, and that happened to be the day that a car caught fire and had a huge fireball explosion next to my favourite slide, like 20 minutes after we would have gotten there, and I would have been on or near the slide when it basically melted. I had a gut feeling I should pull my wallet and phone out of my purse. Not even 20 seconds later, I get mugged. The man dragged me across the sidewalk and stole my purse, but all he ended up getting was a juice box and my birth control. What flavour was the juice box? I smelled burning plastic early in the morning at my family cottage and almost went back to sleep. I was around 15, but got up to investigate. A socket on the outside of the building had caught fire, and flames were shooting up the wall. The rest of my family was still sleeping, and there wasn't enough smoke for the alarms to go off. I ran and got the extinguisher, got my dad up and put it in his hands and pointed towards the fire. Stopped it and called the fire brigade. It's for stories like this why I always get up when I smell something burning. I get really stressed about it. 2 summers ago, I woke up to the smell of fire and found out that a neighbour was burning leaves in his backyard and it had gone out of control. So scary. About 10 years ago, working security at a site about 50 miles from my home, got off a shift at midnight and didn't bother to change out of uniform because I was only going to stop for gas. 2 stations in the town I was working in were open after midnight, but it slipped my mind as I drove past the first one. Pulled into the other. Same brand, same gas price, same sort of dump entirely, and I just didn't like something about it. Nobody else there but the clerk that I could see, but I decided to go back to the other one. Topped off and headed back out of town. I get close to the station again. 3 city cop cars, 2 deputies, and a state trooper are outside, blocking the road with guns drawn. Turns out, a city cop walked in on a robbery. Dude put a bullet in his vest, and the store owner knocked the robber out cold with a bat before the cop could recover enough to get his gun out. That would have been me, in a uniform with a nice shiny badge, but no body armor. Wow, in all earnestness, you actually dodged a bullet on that one. My aunt told me a story about my dad, who greatly dislikes his sister and is an all-round a-hole 98% of the time. Calling her out of the blue one night while she was in college. She answered. He said he didn't know why, but he had the urge to call her, to make sure she was okay. She told him she was fine and thanked him for calling to check on her. She never told anyone else except me, and hopefully a therapist or 2. But she was holding the bottle of pills she was planning to commit with right when he called her. 20-some years later, and she's very happy with her decision to live. I went to hospital with shortness of breath and my heart racing. They did a chest x-ray, blood test for blood clots, etc., and a few other tests, but all came back normal. After observing me overnight, everything still looked good. Oxygen saturation was perfect, my heart rate was still a bit elevated, but nothing too crazy, and it seemed that it was likely leftover symptoms from a bad virus that I'd had a week or so earlier. The ER doctor asked me how I would feel if they sent me home, and I just had a really bad feeling about it all. I told him as such, and that I had no real basis for it, except that I just felt off about it. He said, "Fair enough, let's try one more test, and if that comes back negative, then we'll send you up to general medicine and see if they can track something down." That test was a VQ scan that found, despite all the other tests showing no results for blood clots, I actually had a whole bunch of them in both lungs. I ended up with a diagnosis of unprovoked bilateral pulmonary embolisms, and am on the blood thinners for life. Super grateful, both for the bad feeling and the ER doctor, who was willing to listen to it. EMT here. I was taught if a patient tells you that they think something is wrong or they think they're going to die, you need to listen to them. Same for nurses. There is a legit nursing diagnosis called sense of impending doom that is referencing to this feeling. Someone can't explain what is wrong and there's nothing obvious, but we need to take it seriously. The body somehow feels something wrong when the brain can't find the words. I've found this to be very common with pulmonary emboli, heart attacks, and strokes. The body is so weird. Okay, this person seriously doesn't know what punctuation is. I was going to meet up with someone from Marketplace to buy a phone and the feeling hit me. So, I called the woman and a man answered, trying to play off the fact that he's a man. I passed by where we were meeting, and it was dark and I heard voices coming in the background on the phone call. I never stopped and kept the car going. Pretty sure I saved myself from, at the very least, a mugging, but learned a good lesson: always meet in a public place. You can meet at police stations. I believe most are okay with this. That's actually a really good idea. My mum dropped my 3-year-old brother off at daycare before she had work in the morning. When she got to work, she had this terrible feeling something was wrong with him. She ended up leaving work and drove to daycare. She found the daycare lady sleeping inside while the daycare kids, including my brother, were running outside around the pool. My brother never went back to that daycare again. What the hell kind of daycare would even have a pool? Those things murder the hit out of little kids. Not me, but my mother saved my grandfather's life when he had a stroke in his chair in their living room. We had all started to walk around the development when my mother, about 50 to 75 meters from the house, said, "I'm going to go back and check on Dad." I went with her and I nearly witnessed my grandfather die. He was on the chair, conscious, but unable to move or talk, just looking at my mother with bulging eyes. She called 911 once, then twice when she felt they were running late. Ambulance came, got him on a stretcher, but it was too wide to fit out the door. We ended up tearing the door frame off to get him out. Because he was conscious, he actually remembers the drive to the hospital. He told us later that he heard the driver or someone say, "There is not a chance that this guy lives." That was when I was around 5-6 years old. He is still alive to this day, more than a decade later. At my mother's funeral, part of his speech was about how, without my mother, he would not have been able to spend time with her during the final years of his life, and for that, he is eternally grateful. I am terribly sorry to hear that your grandfather and yourself had to bury your mother, but you all had a few more years together at least. It didn't save me, but saved a friend. A big group of friends and I were walking home from an event in a town we weren't used to. It was night and hardly anyone was around, empty streets and all that. We were walking down a sidewalk that had high fences next to it, so when you turned a corner, whatever was around it was out of sight. One of the girls fell behind, distracted by her phone I think, and I noticed, so I started drifting behind as well to become a sort of midway point between her and the group. Soon, we were nearing where we were staying, and our group rounded a corner, then started making their way into the yard where our living quarters were. I saw a car drive past us, then turn a corner down the street the girl was still on. As soon as I saw it, I suddenly got this suspicious, awful feeling, so I stopped and went back to the corner to keep an eye on the friend. The car drove past her, stopped, did a complete U-turn, and slowly started creeping up behind/alongside her. She was still on her phone and wasn't noticing a thing. I stepped out from around the corner and started walking towards her. The car sped off quickly as soon as the driver saw me. It scares me that someone could have grabbed her and none of us would have seen a thing. It would have just been like one of those cliche movie moments when you turn around and realize a member of the group is missing. To compound that potential tragedy, she'd just gotten engaged a few weeks prior. I think the fact that we had worked with some safe houses in the area that discussed human trafficking probably aided me on being high alert, and the area we were in was known for that sort of thing. She's really lucky you were so aware of your surroundings and keeping an eye out for her as well. I was 15 years old and my mum dropped me off at a McDonald's to get breakfast while she went across the street to get Starbucks. It was a shopping mall in a suburbia and we were on our way to pick up a new kitten a few hours away. Instead of walking the 100 yards to go to my mum, I sat outside waiting for her to pick me up. Teenagers, I guess. As I'm standing there, a guy in an old station wagon with 2 kids in the back starts talking to me. He asks me where I'm going and I say whatever town it was. He says he's going there too with his kids and asks if I want to come. I tell him no, that my mum is across the street. He comes closer. My gut is saying something is off. So I see a random woman walk out of Starbucks and I point to her and say, "There's my mum right there." He freaked out and left quickly. I still remember those two kids in the back seat. They looked so off. I wonder to this day if they're okay. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this Reddit Now video all the way to the end. If you've made it this far, you obviously enjoyed the video and I think that warrants a like. If, on the other hand, you watched this far for no reason at all and hated it, then drop a dislike. As you can see, YouTube has whacked a couple of my other videos on the screen that you'll enjoy as well. So make sure you click on them if you enjoyed this one. Finally, only 3% of my viewers are actually subscribed, so if you could subscribe, that would really help me out and I would appreciate it a lot. This has been Peter from Reddit Now, wishing you guys a happy new year. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one. See ya.